Our next speaker is Justin Funa. Justin has a decade of experience in the U.S. Air Force doing presidential airlift missions. If you want to know more about what that means, you should grab him on the break. He was born in the Philippines and shaped by water, and that's really what brought him to this program and helped shape his project. Justin you saw when Jason was struggling to pull up his presentation, Justin was the first person to run up and help him find it. That is a great symbol of who Justin is every day in this program, showing up to help folks, his fellow cohort mates, and just be really generous with his friendship and his support. So it's been a delight to have you in the cohort, Justin, and we're excited to hear about what you did back in the Philippines over the last couple of months. Please join me in welcoming Justin.
These waters are shared by wildlife, tour operators, fishers, communities. The relationships between them are layered. They shape livelihoods, tradition, and identity. In April, I returned home to the Philippines to understand these relationships. In a part of the country where whale sharks, mantas, and people have long relied in the same space. My capstone asked a straightforward question. How do we protect these species while supporting the communities that live alongside them? That question shaped this project. It focused the work on where species and people overlap, often without contact, but never without effect. These impacts aren't always intentional, but they do come from sharing space. And that is what led me to Ticao Pass, where these overlaps are constant. Ticao Pass sits in the center of the Philippine archipelago. It is a biologically rich corridor where whale sharks and mantas seasonally gather. It is also designated as an important shark and ray area, or ISRA. It is an international distinction known for its role in shark and ray feeding, breeding, and migration. These species are protected under the Philippine law, but like many marine protections here, enforcement remains very limited. And while tourism in the region brings in about $3.5 million per year, there are no detailed maps showing where these species and human activity intersect. And my project set out to fill that gap. I compiled species sightings with the help of LAMAVE, which is the Large Marine Vertebrates Research Institute of the Philippines, a Philippine-based NGO that is focused on the conservation of large marine species. They graciously hosted me and shared their data from their research in the region. Fun Dive Asia, which is a local dive shop based out of Ticao Island, was gracious enough to share their logs with me as well. I was also able to map human activity. With the help of WWF Philippines, another NGO that was working in the region, they shared their fishing hotspots from their earlier socioeconomic work with local fishers in the region. I was also able to distribute GPS trackers to local fishers moving around the pass. We were only able to collect 6 complete tracks, but that added real movement data, and is very representative of common routes used by fishers in the pass. I was also able to, this is my favorite part, was just chat with local fishers and guides. They shared their experiences about how they use the pass, the ocean, and how everything is changing around them. Once I layered the data, a little pattern emerged. Whale sharks were most frequently shown and sighted near the Donsol Bay, which are zones that are rich in plankton and are well known for surface feeding behavior. That spot is also where the whale shark tourism happens. Mantas, on the other hand, were strongly associated with the manta bowl. The manta bowl is a submerged reef on the top of a seamount and is a deep water cleaning station used by mantas frequently. It is known for consistent manta activity and is also a really good dive site, so if you guys are interested. Let's have a quick look at this chart. So the blue represents mantas and orange represents whale sharks. The y-axis shows the number of individuals sighted, and x-axis shows the date of the dive spanning a year from May of last year to this year. If you look closely, compared to the same time last year, overall sightings are down. And the guides have reported fewer whale shark sightings feeding near the surface in Donsol Bay, which is just north of here. But the logs tell a more complex story. Whale sharks are still moving through the pass and the manta bowl, and in numbers almost the same as mantas this season. That suggests that the animals are present, but their behavior may be shifting. After mapping species presence, I wanted to look at human activity as well. So this map shows where fishing activity is concentrated. The black and gray hotspots come from the earlier community mapping efforts and are identified by local fishers themselves. The red and the blue lines represent GPS tracks from local fishers and dive operators. The red represents the ones that operate out of Tikal Island, and the blue represents the ones that operate out of Donsol. When you put it all together, overlap happens. While whale shark tour tracks aren't always shown, they hover around the most active areas for whale shark feeding. But the manta bowl stands out as one of the clearest points of overlap between fishing, tourism, and wildlife. But for local communities, none of this is new. This is where they go to work every day. Back to my favorite part. I was able to chat with community members. One fisher, Kuya Bardo on the left of your screen. Kuya means brother, and if you yell that anywhere in the Philippines, somebody will respond. He mentioned that on a typical day fishing, he brings home about 200 pesos, which is roughly $4 for reference. And that is not enough to make ends meet, so he has to pick up side jobs, unfortunately, to make ends meet. A guide also shared with me that when only one whale shark shows up during a whale shark tour, even though with rules in place such as one whale shark per boat, they're kind of forced to, all the boats are kind of forced to go to that whale shark. That creates tension for tourists, for the crews, and for the animals themselves. These kinds of stories came up often. People notice these changes, and they're adjusting, but the uncertainty is real. Bringing the map together with these voices helped shape a few takeaways. We know that whale sharks and mantas are in the past, I think we also know that they are showing the same places where fishers and tourism operate, but we didn't have that visually. Some local observations align with the logs. Others, such as the fewer sightings on the bay compared to what is shown on the logs underwater, don't. Again, that tells us the dynamics of the past is shifting. And people really, really support conservation in the past, but they do want to say on how it's accomplished. And in nearly every conversation, there was a sense of investment. People care about the species, but they don't want decisions made without them. And based on that, here is what I recommend moving forward. Fishers and guides already track what they see. Including them in data collection can make monitoring more rooted and consistent. The map is publicly accessible for local use. It can support LGUs, local government units, and NGOs in zoning and discussions. It can also be used to identify conflicts and support conversations across groups. Logs already exist, but with a shared format, they could help track long-term trends without needing new surveys each time. The GPS tracks I gathered were a start. Increasing that and adding details such as gear type, effort level, and seasonality would show where pressure is increasing or shifting. Testing small-scale incentives or stipends tied to local species conservation. I think even a small financial link between local monitoring and conservation work gives people a reason to stay engaged, especially when wildlife is harder to find. I brought all these layers together into an interactive story map. There will be a QR code at the end so you can explore it at your own pace. It shows species sightings, fishing activity, tourism routes, alongside summaries and local insight. The goal was to build something people could use. Planners, local governments, NGOs, anyone really who's working in the past or wants to work in the past. I've always understood that conservation doesn't work without the people who live alongside what we're trying to protect. My project is dedicated to that truth. I came back home to the Philippines, to a place that showed me why I wanted to do this work. I knew I wanted to contribute into something that felt rooted, something that reflected both data and lived experience. This is only one piece of the story. The more important piece is the one here, like people here already know, drawn from years on the water, from memory, tradition, and necessity. This project reminded me that protecting biodiversity isn't just about presence. It's about relationships between species, spaces, and the people who rely on both. My project came together with the support of so many people. My capstone committee, Rory Driscoll, he's my chair, Dr. Alessandro Ponzo, Dr. David Schiffman. Thank you for the patience, the guidance, combined insight, and this would not be possible without you guys. To the Lamave team, especially Titus, hopefully you're listening. Thanks for their friendship, and even though I speak 5 dialects from that country, there's one place that it was not for me. So he was my voice on the ground, translating a little bit. Thank you, I appreciate that. The WWF, the tourism office, the dive shops, thank you for sharing your time. Cohort, my mentors, Hannah, Greg, Samantha, and Mariah. Thank you for keeping me on my toes. And most of all, to the guides, the fishers, the dive crews, and the people of the past. This project is shaped by you guys, so thank you. Questions? I can't point.
Great presentation, even cooler project. I guess one question I have had is like, why just, I know the Lamave group is specifically large marine vertebrates, but is there a reason that it wasn't more than just mantas and whale sharks, or there's just the most, are the species that everyone comes to see for tourist purposes?
Great question. The pass itself predominantly just has mantas and whale sharks. I tried my hardest to include threshers. I have threshers on my paper because they're my favorite animal and they're the best. I tried my best to include them, but there was just not enough data there to support that. And again, back to what the pass has to offer is mainly catered to mantas and whale sharks.
Justin, we've got a question from one of your committee members online. David Schiffman would like to know, what advice would you have for a future student interviewing fishers and dive operators if they, unlike you, have no connection to the country where they're working?
That is a great question. I think time. Put in the time to get to know the people that you're going to be working with. Unfortunately, in my case, even though I did speak the language, I only had a month to work with them, and even that was, to me, I didn't feel like it was enough time to get to know people, but they did their best. But yeah, time, approach it as a listener and not somebody who's trying to save the space, because the people that live in that area already know what needs to be done, odds are they just don't have the capabilities to do it. But yeah, listen, take your time and just be genuine, be friendly.
Justin, great job. Can you elaborate more on how you managed to use GPS tracking for the fisherman activity?
Yes, I can. It was a very interesting time. Me and Titus went around the town a lot, trying to just ask fishers if they were willing to take like mini GPS tracks to when they go out fishing. And maybe on a percentage-wise, we got like 10 to 20% of like fishers to actually take it, and that's with 2 people that speak the language. So it's, again, back to relationship building. It was interesting. We tried to get on the boat, but it was also like, yeah, they wouldn't let us on the boat because they want their privacy, and that's typical of fishers. But yeah, it was fun and interesting, and it was frustrating at times, but it was a good experience.
Great job, Justin.